Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
My name is Ethan King, and I suppose you could call me a certified genius. I have an IQ of 168 and hold 7 degrees, 3 of which are doctorates. I'm the epitome of a nerd, 6'1", weighing 158 pounds, with thick glasses to match. Socially, I'm pretty shy, especially around beautiful women, which has been a challenge for me. Though I do have one surprising asset that most people wouldn't guess. I'm well endowed and, well, I know how to use it. Not exactly the kind of thing that comes up in most conversations, but it has shaped a part of my life in a very unexpected way. So, what does all that have to do with anything? Probably not much, but it explains why I've sometimes found myself as the other guy in certain relationships. I graduated high school at 13 and earned my first degree in business administration by 15. By the time I was 24 and finally ready to leave the academic world behind, I'd added a few more bachelor's degrees in industrial security and physics. I went on to earn a master's in information technology and doctorates in electrical engineering, advanced mathematics, and computer science. I didn't just rack up degrees for fun, though. I turned all that knowledge into something real by founding my own company, King & Associates. We're a consulting firm that advises on almost anything businesses or individuals might need. And it's been a successful venture, one I'm proud of. I met the woman of my dreams while in college while I was working on my master's in information technology. Her name was Kathy Brown, and she was a junior struggling with her studies in math and accounting at the same college where I was attending. I was tutoring students to derive spending money while I was at school. I had several scholarships in a few fields, so my tuition, books, and most fees were satisfied, but I still needed money to be able to live on. I hated dorms, since I always got some jock or party animal as a roommate, and that was not conducive to my studying habits. So tutoring allowed me to gain enough money to afford a cheap studio apartment not far from campus. I had put a sheet of paper with my qualifications for tutoring on as many bulletin boards as possible all over campus with my phone number and little tear-off strips, and I was bringing in well over $5,000 a month in additional money when I met Kathy. I was 21 when I met Kathy. She called me hoping that I could give her some time to help her with her problems. As it happened, I did have a couple of openings in my schedule where I could tutor her. When she showed up at my apartment, I was totally flummoxed. Here was this 20-year-old gorgeous blonde model that took my heart and soul into her eyes and locked them away forever. Beautiful women have always intimidated me, but this creature captured my heart, and I acted like a shy child. Yeah, several of my tutored students were jocks and cheerleader types that needed help in one subject or another, and at first, I had a hard time tutoring beautiful girl. I was just too intimidated. However, I knew in order to make any money at this game, I had to be able to talk to and interact with these women. So, I developed a fail-safe mechanism for me to picture them in a muumuu and 50 to 100 pounds heavier. For years, public speakers have tried the trick of seeing their audience in their underwear to stave off stage fright. So, I theorized that if it worked for them, this should work for me. And lo and behold, it did. When some young thing leaned over in front of me and showed me some cleavage, I thought of a dairy cow and her udders and no more sexual thoughts or shyness. This system always worked for any beautiful woman until Kathy. The only picture that came into my mind with Kathy was her and I, in bed and making love. It might seem like, at 21 and being the epitome of a nerd, I'd still be inexperienced in relationships. However, life had other plans. While many of the young women I tutored came from affluent backgrounds and could pay for my academic help, some had fewer resources. In those cases, they offered something else, insight into relationships and intimacy. I lost my virginity to a college senior named Lola Jones, who needed help preparing for her finals. With limited means to pay for tutoring, she proposed a different kind of exchange. I would help her academically, and in return, she would teach me about love and intimacy. It was an unexpected opportunity for me to learn things that couldn't be found in textbooks. Lola took her role as a mentor seriously, and our tutoring sessions evolved into something more. It was a unique learning experience, one that shaped my understanding of both relationships and the complexities of life at a young age. She had a lot to teach me, and it seemed like a very one-sided bargain. I was 17 at the time. In the month that I helped her review the subjects for her finals, I learned many ways to satisfy the daughters of Venus. I have since that time repaid her kindness to so many women, I have lost count. Well, not really. At the time I met Kathy, it was 57 different women I had tutored in their college subjects, and they tutored me in the ways of love. All the women I had encountered and learned from over the years didn't prepare me for Kathy. She was different. The moment I laid eyes on her, it felt like my world flipped. I was no longer the confident man I had become, but was instead thrown back to the shy, awkward boy I had been at 12 years old. It reminded me of the time Marilyn Fisk asked me to the senior prom on a dare. I still remember how I froze, utterly flustered, not knowing how to respond. My palms were sweaty, my heart pounded in my chest, and all I could manage was to stand there, with my mouth opening and closing, as if I were a fish gasping for air. I eventually stammered out something like, "You want me to go to the dance with you?" Meeting Kathy brought all of that back, except this time. It felt even more intense. It was as if all the confidence I had built over the years vanished in an instant. "No, Poindexter, we wanted to see if I asked you if you pissed your pants. I guess we were wrong. See ya, Poindexter." And she turned around and left giggling and then laughing with the 5 girls with her. Needless to say, I was the laughing stock of the whole school for about 2 weeks. I was finally able to welcome Kathy to my apartment by gestures alone. Once we introduced ourselves and I gave her my fee paper, things calmed down some. Once I knew what subjects she needed help in, I could throw myself into the tutoring. It was after the 3rd session that I asked Kathy for a date. I did reserve either a Friday or Saturday night available for dates, as many of my students preferred to stay in those nights with me. God forbid that we be seen outside of the normal tutor-tutee relationship. Their reputation would be ruined if they were seen in public with a nerd such as me. I felt deep in my heart that Kathy was different, so I asked her for a date to go to a movie on Saturday evening. It was a Tuesday evening when I asked her, and she responded with, "Ethan, I would love to go out with you, however, I do have a steady boyfriend at the moment, and I don't think he would approve. Maybe sometime later we can get together. If I can pass these subjects, I will be able to stay another year, and who knows what will happen by then." That was one of the gentlest put-downs I had ever received from any girl. I was smitten from then on. After 5 sessions, Kathy was up to speed and no longer needed my help. We saw each other around on campus, and she did send a couple of girls my way for tutoring, but I lost touch with her. But I had heard that her boyfriend at the time became her fiancé shortly after her last session. I figured that she was the one that got away. During my time after college, I took many martial arts classes due to my tall and lean stature. I wanted to be able to defend myself since my outer appearance would seem to make me a target for anyone who wanted what I had accumulated. I became a 4th-degree black belt in a couple of different arts and graduated onto Krav Maga. So although I looked to be a prime target for bullies, I was one dangerous dude. Fast forward 7 years to the next time I met Kathy. I went to Gates Manufacturing for a consultation on a manufacturing operation, and I met Kathy in the accounting section when I was setting up how and when I was to be paid. I certainly remembered her, and she remembered me too, which was quite a shock. I had met several other men and women whom I had tutored over the years, and none of them recognized me. I immediately noticed the name Kathy Cooper on her desk nameplate. I did remember that she was going with a Brandon Cooper in college, so I assumed that she married him either during her senior year or shortly thereafter. We talked of old times for a couple of minutes when she whispered to me, "Is it true what the rumors were about you? That you are a very skilled lover with a unique, unusually large..." "Yes, Mrs. Cooper, that is quite true, however. I do not plow another man's field." "I see. But would you plow someone's field if it was authorized by the owner? Are you implying that there is a standing agreement between the owner and that the field in question could be tilled and cultivated by others?" "If you're asking if we have an open marriage, yes. And I would like to repay my debt to someone who helped me far more than they were aware of. That's how it all started. What I didn't know was that Brandon and Kathy didn't have an open marriage. She was looking for some outside excitement. They were approaching their 7th year together as man and wife, and the sex was getting boring. Add to that, Brandon was traveling a lot and leaving Kathy home alone, and you get the typical situation for cheating. Needless to say, I never knew until we were found out that she was just cheating on Brandon. We set up a time and place, my townhouse in the city, and a schedule for when she would come to see me and we could get it on. She became obsessed with me, and that is how we got caught. At first, she only set up dates when her husband was gone. But 4 months later, she was visiting me in the evening after her work and telling her husband that she was having a drink or two with the girls after work. That was her downfall. I think if she had kept it to Friday evenings after work and not stayed for a double, we probably would have never been found out. It was a Friday night about 7 when I heard the door chime, and I grabbed a robe and went to the door. There stood 2 men, both almost 6 feet. Both were fairly well-built, but a little paunchy in the middle. The one in front had a red face, and the one behind had a camera and took my picture. "Excuse me, gentlemen. May I help you?" "You damn right you can get out of my way, so I can get to that cheating 304 I married," said the red-faced man. I let them in, and then I asked, "I take it that you are referring to Mrs. Cooper. She is in the bedroom to the left. I was informed that you two had an open marriage, and I had your permission to dally with the lady in question." From the living room, red-faced Brandon Cooper said, "She's no lady. And you're damned right, I never authorized this little get-together, as he stormed into the bedroom with the photographer in tow. I heard several screams, whereupon I quickly entered the bedroom to see Brandon slapping Kathy. I stepped in and grabbed his arm as he set about another blow, but this time with a fist instead of an open-handed slap. I spun him around and then planted a fist in his stomach, and he oofed and sank to the floor trying to breathe. The photographer had been taking a video of the proceedings, and I asked kindly for him to make a copy of the video from me, as well as Mr. Cooper. Yes, sir, Mr. King. Whatever you want. I never saw someone do that to Brandon before. He is usually the one to be the victor. I don't want any trouble. I'm just here to photograph the infidelity. I have no problem with that, Mr. Ned Flanders, Mr. King. I'm a friend whom Mr. Cooper wanted along to get evidence for his divorce. I moved over to Ned with the grace of a dancer and held my hand out to shake as I said, I'm pleased to meet you, Mr. Flanders. Are you a professional photographer, or is this just a hobby? About then Brandon started to get up. I turned rapidly and stared into his eyes, and he sat back down again. I guess the look on my face and the cold manner of my eyes stayed him from any more shenanigans. Ned glanced at Brandon and then to me and said, More a hobby, but I sure would like to do more than I'm able to at the moment. Why? Well, I may have use for a photographer a little later, on a project I am about to undertake. I have a little problem with someone selling some product for a client of mine, and I sure could use someone with your skills for this project. Maybe I could use you on some other projects as well. What do you think? Oh yes, this has nothing to do with this little mess, and it doesn't hinge on anything that happens as a result of this matter tonight. I accept full responsibility for being the other guy in this triangle, Mr. Cooper, but I was approached, not the other way around, I said to Brandon. That is awfully nice of you, Mr. King. I knew that Kathy knew you before. She said that you helped her a lot in school, but I never expected this. I'm sorry I barged in here like I did. I just expected some lowlife sleaze wife stealer. I never expected to meet such a gentleman. May I get up now? I think we need to take this to the other room and let the 304 get dressed and leave. I'll be divorcing her soon. You can have her if you like. I think not, since once a cheater, always a cheater. At least that is what I have heard. Brandon, Ned, and I retired to the living room, and I asked if anyone would like a drink. I fixed drinks for the three of us, 2 beers, and a soda for me. We talked for about 5 minutes, and I could hear water running, so Kathy had taken a shower. She afterwards came out of the bedroom dressed and said, Good night, Ethan. I'm truly remorseful about all this. Then she stood in front of Brandon and said, I'm really very sorry for all this, Brandon. I just got caught up in something I should have never even thought about, but I heard about Ethan, and ever since college, I have always regretted that I never went out with him, and then I found out he had a big tool and knew how to use it. Well, I'm very sorry I hurt you like that, Brandon. Please try to accept that this will never happen again. That I can promise you. I love you too much for that. My God, woman, do you even listen to what comes out of your mouth? You just said that you loved me too much to cheat again, but you did cheat on me. So if you love me too much to cheat, how did you do it the first time? I can promise you, though, that it will never happen to me again, because I'm going to divorce you for this. Kathy just dropped to the floor in front of Brandon's chair and hugged his legs, bawling her eyes out. None of the 3 men sitting could understand a single word that Kathy was mumbling. It was just noise to them. Brandon had had enough and said crossly, Just go home, woman. I'll be along later. However, get used to the idea that there will be a divorce. How bloody and dirty it becomes depends on how much you fight it. So go home and think about your future. Kathy reluctantly got up and went to the door. She looked back and said, I'm truly sorry, Brandon. With that she left, and there was a bit of silence for a while. The 3 of us talked a while, mostly about how Kathy set this up, how long it had been going on. I did explain to Brandon that I didn't try to stop this because I told him of my love for Kathy in college, and that once I found out about him and Kathy going out, I only tutored her, and then I left her alone. I had too many other girls who were willing and available to mess with someone who was taken. Brandon and Ned left in a much better frame of mind than when I first answered the door. Ned said he would call me later once the dust settled. In the case of Kathy and Brandon, I was called to give a deposition during their divorce proceedings, and all I did was tell the truth. Kathy's lawyer attempted to paint the situation as if I had some lingering vendetta because I missed my chance with Kathy in college. They suggested I was seeking revenge against Brandon by getting involved with Kathy. However, I clarified that I knew of 5 other women who could verify that I had no interest in interfering with solid marriages. The only reason I got involved with Kathy was because I received a call from someone claiming to be Brandon, saying that they had an open marriage and that I had his permission to be with her. This revelation turned out to be even more problematic for Kathy, as it came to light that she had a coworker impersonate Brandon to make that call. The deposition was recorded on video, and a stenographer was present to transcribe everything. Once I signed the transcript, my part in the legal process was done. I never heard from Kathy again after that. She apparently left town. As for Brandon, he vanished from my life as well after the court hearing. Ned, the person who originally brought this situation to light, turned out to be a great addition to my company, and we've since moved on to work on bigger projects. Looking back, this whole episode was just another example of how life twists and turns. Whether you're on the receiving end of betrayal or the one involved in the betrayal, it seems that in the end, life continues regardless. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.